Well, the month of Gemini has just begun, and it's time to take a look at what's ahead for the country and for you. New moon just happened. Things are very quiet and dark and hidden, and quiet and hidden is certainly a theme that we've been seeing in this country actually for many years. Lots of stuff happening behind the scenes is a phrase that I very often use, and it's consistent that in our chart every month it does keep on referring to there's always stuff hidden away. Well, there's much more hidden away as usual, and as usual, we'll eventually find out about it. But most importantly, most recently, we've seen ourselves get into a bit of a diplomatic tussle with the United States of America over that Russian ship that was in Simon's Town a little while ago. And it does look as if that is beginning to have consequences, even though the government is spinning it as if the ambassador apologized. He really only apologized for saying it out loud, not for thinking that in the first place. But all that kind of thing is building up to a consequence. The consequence may or may not be the AGOA a treaty, a trade agreement that we have with America, but it is something, because what does show in our chart for the month ahead is significant reduction of trade and other resources that come from overseas. Whatever we may know as citizens, or we may see, and we only, for example, see what the Americans are doing or thinking because of that ambassador blurting things out. In terms of actual diplomacy and trade going on behind the scenes, there's a lot that we don't see. But what astrology sees is that there are many countries that are disgruntled and upset with us and want to impose some kinds of trade restrictions or financial restrictions. It's likely that the chart is also referring to reduced investment or impact on investment in this country. That's not only to do with the Russian ship, it's to do, for example, with the grey listing and other factors that are all adding up to increasing pulling away of other countries. So there is this kind of disinvestment which seems to be happening and is creating some kind of financial issues for us in the long run. In the short run, that does not seem to be bothering anyone in the government, because spending looks like it's increasing at this time, and it also seems to be perhaps encouraged by a good cash flow period that government is going through, maybe the country is going through for whatever reasons. Perhaps they've collected more tax than they thought, or something like that, makes them feel a little bit easier with money, as if they didn't always feel that. And it looks like spending is on the up and up. So we're going to need to breathe deeply, as we'll see the government spending again needlessly money that they don't have, our money as ever. Some of that is, of course, behind the scenes. As I've said, most behind the scenes of all is the president of this country, who might be regarded as president in name only, since we don't really see him doing any presidenting. And the chart shows that there is possibly still some growing dissatisfaction in his party. We've seen that a lot, of course, over the last years. And as I even started saying last year, through the early months of this year, building up to April. Well, we've just had April. And so judging by what's been going on, we can expect that there are people in the government who are increasingly dissatisfied with the behavior of the president and are beginning to actually do something about it. I often talk about how change must come from grassroots, and we know that change is coming from grassroots. I spoke about it last month, and there's been more and more in the news about it, how various different NGOs and private interests, companies and so on, are beginning to do the work that government should be doing to try and save the country and save the economy and all of those kinds of things. Well, now it's gradually moving to people are beginning to hold that president responsible for the lack of presidenting and, I should say, the lack of leadership and the failure to really deal with the problems that the country is facing. It does look like that is beginning to have a bigger impact, not in June. It's not as quick as this, but it certainly seems that the second half of this year is all the stuff behind the scenes that I talk about is actually related to him and is affecting him in some way. The good news is that this is also provoking us to remember and aspire towards many of our ideals. The chart for this month is very focused on ideals, and South Africans beginning to understand the difference between what they want and what we've aspired to in this country versus what they're getting, what they're not seeing happen, and so on. So it's probable that as we enter more and more into the second half of the year, we're seeing more electioneering hotting up. We're seeing more of the opposition parties beginning to point out these deficiencies in the government in fulfilling the dreams and aspirations of this country, which had been so important and significant through our history, and especially, of course, since 1994, where it actually seemed possible that something might come of them in some way. Well, now we are beginning to see those dreams and aspirations becoming up to the surface again. We know that lots of input from various opposition parties, it's all electioneering, is going to stir a lot of that up. A lot of it is just about electioneering. Not sure that we can really believe any of them that much, because it's very much about politics. But what is important is that even if they're doing it for their own reasons, they're reminding us of our ideals and aspirations. We, as South Africans, can take back ownership of our ideals and aspirations, take them away from the political parties and the government, which does nothing, and start doing it again for ourselves. So as I'm finding myself often ending this section off by saying, remember, NGOs, grassroots level, even big corporations who want to save the economy, it's got to come back to us and find a way to get those back into action. Don't lose sight of your dreams and aspirations. Don't let government steal those away from you. They were ours in the first place. Let's re-own them and re-aspire towards them. Aries, your month ahead is all about dreams, aspirations, and goals, but these are really all about your own ones. It is time to kind of clarify some of those. You're doing well, you're making progress, and you will see a lot of progress in your professional life this month, but there is a little bit of a red flag saying you're not being focused on goals, ideals, and actual particular outcomes. So it's just time to tighten things up a little bit. Make sure you've got a clear idea of what outcomes and which ambitions you're dealing with at the moment. Be careful not to allow too much onto your plate, or just be in that thing of doing too many things at the same time. You do have a little bit of alert against being too casual and careless with your financial resources, perhaps some other resources as well. So it's also time to be a little tight on that. You know, in your life at the moment, in your personal life, and perhaps in your professional life, you're feeling strong, and some of that is going to come across as pride and arrogance. You need to look out for that, because that's going to cause some bad reactions in the people around you, and might also cause you to get a little bit reckless. Not a great time to be reckless. This month is all about focus for you, Aries, because there is so much that you can get out of it. There's so much that you can achieve right now. Major goals are in play at the moment. Cut out the extras and the unclears and just focus on those. Taurus, if anyone is idealistic this month, it's you. And the great news is that this is the perfect month to be idealistic. It's the perfect month to dust off some goals that you might have forgotten about, even some of those lofty goals. We're not necessarily talking about ambition in the professional, good old-fashioned sense of the word. It's time for those bigger ambitions and those personal ambitions, the ones that are really just for you or just about you, and that might not benefit your financial life or your family or anyone else. You've got to indulge yourself a little bit. You're not too shy to do that, and this is one of those months to do it. In fact, self-indulgence is a great theme for your month, Taurus. It is your time to shine. You've just had a birthday. You're probably feeling a bit more on top of things than usual. Don't spend it all at once, but do benefit from the fact that you've just had a birthday and it's kind of your time. More importantly, though, about those ideals is that they also need to be something that fulfills a deeper need in you at the moment. So ask yourself, what are my needs right now? Connection, companionship, people are also an important need at this time in your life, Taurus. And the great news is there's new people coming to your life, new friends, new acquaintances, new connections. Make those connections. They're probably going to help you fulfill some of those ideals. Gemini, happy birthday. It is your month after all, and it does seem to be getting off to a bit of a slow start for you. Maybe your birthday hasn't rocked around just yet, and of course, that's going to help once you get past that date. Things will start speeding up, but it seems as if there's a little bit of homework you need to do before things can really start moving for you the way that you want them to move. It's like finish unfinished business, tie up some loose ends. There's some stuff from the last month that you haven't really addressed, and there's stuff that might have come to light over the course of the last few days, this weekend and a few days afterwards, if you're listening to this later, that you'll find have also come up that kind of need attention. So important to get all of these things out of the way. Firstly, if it's not your birthday yet, before your birthday rocks around. And secondly, just to get the year going properly for you. Remember, the year starts with your birthday, not always at the beginning of January. Depends on what your birthday is all about. There's also stuff in your personal life that hasn't been addressed, that either you've swept under the carpet or you're being nice and discreet, which is always a good thing. Time to address those. Social connections are important. Like some others this month, they're the most important thing going on. Clear out unfinished business, re-strengthen some of your ties, and you will finally be able to get the show back on the road once you get rid of some of the old baggage. And so things are really happening for you. Usually in the month before our birthdays, things go pretty quiet, but doesn't really seem to be much of that going on for you. Certainly new things are starting, things that are all about fulfilling your own needs and desires, goals, whatever they may be, are on the table. They might take a little while to get going, but this time it's because of you. Circumstances are right. You need to engage with how things actually are and work from there rather than what you think or wish should be happening along the way. This is really a time to satisfy things that are really important to you. A lot of that has to do with people and other connections. There can also be connections that are important in your working life. That means networking, and this is your networking month. Cancerians, it can really serve you well in the future, even if you don't see the results immediately. Networking will also help personal goals, and there's some other little things that can work for you that make sure that over the course of the next few months, many of your needs are going to be met. So make contact, invest in people, invest in your connections. Even if you're not seeing the results just yet, you're going to see them a little bit further down the road. That also means in other things, from work to play, if you're not seeing immediate results, patience is the lesson. They're waiting for you down the line. Leo, it's time to get your finances in order. I know that's pretty boring, but it's going to serve you well in the long run, because you're just at a point where you could actually be building things up, but you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit. Unnecessary expenses and carelessness are cautions in your chart this month, but there also seems to be something that is haunting you that needs to be dealt with, and that could even cost a little bit of money. Money is slipping through your fingers. So some of it is because you must deal with something that's unfinished or undone. Is there some recurring expense that you're not paying attention to that you can actually bring to a halt or deal with once and for all? Or perhaps there's something you've pushed aside that's going to pop up that's going to turn out to be one of those expenses as well. So you need to be better prepared. Plug the holes where money's going out. Put some aside for things that may yet emerge, and you'll end the month in a much stronger position. Some of your sense of yourself and some of your self-confidence and your certainty in what you're doing seems to be a little bit wobbly at the moment, and you can build some of that back up by taking control of practical things like money or other things where you can be practically and simply in charge. Focus on those to help build some emotional resilience this month, which is required just to get you back on your feet. Virgo, you need to make a little bit of space in your life at the moment. You could be crowded by people. People want too much of you. And quite frankly, you could very well be getting a little bit irritated with it all. Knowing you, the last thing you really want to do is engaged in some kind of social battle, but there's a great danger that things are going to go that way. In fact, at least one of your friendships is looking a little bit fragile or edgy. Either sort it out or confront the issue, but it does look like there are changes happening in your social circle this month. Those could also be changes for the better. New people could be coming in, and things can be resolved with existing friends and so on. But this is really where to put your energy. As much as work and other things might be trundling along smoothly, even if no great shakes are happening just yet, some of the personal baggage is weighing you down a little bit, and it's so unnecessary. Your chart shows efforts to clear and clarify old baggage are really going to be helpful and successful at this time. And it also shows that there's people wanting to help and support you. So just make sure that you clear away things that are unnecessarily standing in the way of good relations with people. You might have to rely on people you don't know what to expect from, and so on. Take a few risks with people. That's also going to be something to your benefit over the course of the next month. Libra, I've been talking a lot about idealism for everyone this month, and you are one of those idealists. But ironically, for Librans, it's time to come back down to earth a little bit. Over the last little while, in fact, a lot of your ideals have been playing themselves out. It looks like you have been pursuing some of the bigger, more important stuff in your life, some of your deeper, more personal goals, and that's really been working for you. But you mustn't lose touch with solid ground, home base, and all of these kinds of things. So it's a great time to be working on the actual home, your physical house, property, domestic life, and so on, and just getting that sense of rootedness back into your life, especially since, well, your chart's still looking great for travel and for expanding yourself far and wide, for learning new things, which are all good stuff. But there are things which can make you float a little bit too much and not keep your feet on the ground. Why do you need to keep your feet on the ground? Well, it looks like there's some things coming into your life this month which are really going to serve you well. That's new people and new opportunities that are coming in. Something is going to require you to step up, say yes, say sure, and you might not feel as confident as the image that you have to project for this, but it's going to work. It's one of those fake it until you make it months, Libra. Do that and you'll be better off at the end of it. Scorpio, letting go is one of the hardest things we all have to do, and for you, it's harder than most. Unfortunately, that's not going to help this month, because this is the month where you're going to have to let go. And perhaps you're going to have to let go at many levels or of many things, especially when it comes to people and your expectations of them. Now, it's true that people do often disappoint you. And if you're going to be honest about it, sometimes you might be a little bit too judgmental, or your standards may be too high in the circumstances. Be that as it may, this is not one of those times, because this is one of those times where it's kind of like you have to let go of what you don't want to let go of. It's not that you're judging anything as less than whatever you want. You're going to have to let go of things that you think do fit into your life, and that maybe they even do, be they people or opportunities or something like this. But in some way, it's weighing you down. In some way, it's no longer working for you. And even if it is something that you're 100% sure is working for you, it's just one of those cases of we don't get to do everything we want to do. Sometimes we've got to do what we need to do. Apologies to the Rolling Stones. So that means go with it. Do what you need more than what you want, needing to let go, to get rid of, to alleviate yourself of what is baggage after all, and you can be much lighter going forward. Sagittarius, things are looking a little out of balance in your life at the moment. Too much of this, too little of that, and all of that has got an accumulative effect. And one of those effects can be on your general sense of health and happiness in that way. So Sagittarians, this is your month to just get on top of your health, your body, your diet, your exercise, all of those things which normally you take for granted and feel very much in command of. That doesn't work forever. Sometimes it requires a bit of a conscious effort. So it's a great opportunity to clean up the diet and exercise department and just do some checkups and just basically get back in charge of matters related to health. It's also one of those months where there's stuff that you have to do much more than stuff that you want to do. You're going to have to do the have to do stuff, but it's also important not to get drawn into situations where you end up really just being, the arms, the hands, doing all the slog work for someone else with getting very little about that from that in return. So it's also important this month to make sure that you're properly compensated for everything that you're doing, and that your rewards match your output and your goals. Getting everything back into balance gets you back into balance, Sagittarius. Capricorn, there seems to be a lot happening in your personal life. That's probably suitable for a month like this, where everyone seems to be shuffling around their personal life a little bit. New friends, new people, whether they're friends or acquaintances or professional input, and you are no exception for that, except it really does seem to be focused around personal things at the moment. There might be a couple of people in your life and you really need to sort out where you stand, but it looks like there's a lot to be gained. There's a lot of input coming to you through people. So this isn't only making personal connections with them, but it's also the things that we get through people, knowledge, experience, being exposed to things that we wouldn't otherwise know about or experience. And that's important for you. Many Capricorns seem to be traveling at this time, and that's a great way to do it. But even if you're not physically traveling yourself, be it via online, be it via any way where you can really expand your horizons, stretch yourself a little bit, because that is what's necessary in order for you to really grow through all your connections to people. Some of those people can also be enemies, and you are cautioned against people who want something from you or might be taking stuff from you. Enemies is quite a strong word, but not everyone thinks so highly of you. So be aware of that. Bring yourself down a step or two and really ask yourself, who is good for me? Focus on them. Aquarians, it's kind of like this is a time when you need to get out more, simply because you seem to be in a comfortable rut or loop. It's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, you might have established a system that works, how things work in your business, or how your goals are pursued and come to fruition. Whatever it may be, that's great. You don't have to change that. But you've got to make sure that you don't become a victim of complacency or being stuck in a rut, something that you actually hate being, although might find yourself in that situation more often than you like. So Aquarians, this is a great time to get out of the house, to travel, to go to places you haven't been before and explore things that you haven't explored before. You might also be a little bit overconfident in what you do know at the moment, what you're working on in that way at the moment, and that's something that you might be unintentionally closing a few of the avenues to whatever you need to learn or whatever you need to know. So shake yourself off, be willing to kind of say I don't know, and be willing to think I don't know even about some of the stuff I thought I did know. So let me just refresh that. Don't get complacent. Let go of old knowledge and old information. Don't be the expert so much. Even if you are the expert, take a step back and say, I'm open to new things. I'm absorbing like a sponge. That's going to make a great month for you. Pisces, a little bit of exotic is also great for you at the moment. Also a great time to expose yourself to new and different things and perhaps places that you haven't been to before. But it's not just about having a holiday or getting new input or something like that. It's also about your goals. You're going to have to deal with the fact that something isn't quite the way that you thought, or isn't working quite the way that you thought, and that might even involve other people. For example, if you have employees or co-workers, you might need to confront that they're not really living up to expectations, and you might have to make things very much more clearer in order to be able to go ahead with your goals. Same might also apply to you personally, where you need to kind of take a good hard look at yourself and say, am I getting complacent and comfortable in what I'm doing and not really stretching myself, or not seeing that things are not what I thought they were? Because that, Pisces, is really what the theme of the month of June is really all about for you. I'm not seeing things clearly. I need to see things more clearly. Let me take off the rose-colored glasses, or let me take off the particular view. It might even be a negative view that I've got, and just get back down to zero level and try and look at things objectively and do what I need to do in order for things to work. And then they're going to work.